Give me 1 second. I'm going to take this hoodie off. It is really warm.
I know. It's. I think I texted you and I was like, it was like 30 degrees today, but it's so sunny.
The theater. Oh, I can't hear you. But
you can't hear me, but you fear me.
I have come on a mission of gravest consequence. For I am the Watcher, member of an ancient race far older than man. But though our power is great, we are pledged only to watch, never to interfere. But now mankind faces the greatest danger it has ever known. The danger of
the Watchers of Earth. 199,999.
welcome to the Watchers of Earth 199,999. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me as always is my co-host, Seth.
Mm-hmm.
Our third co-host, someone, couldn't be here today because he maybe wiped our memories of him from the timeline, and it's for a different podcast to figure out the logistics of how all that actually works while still having him be previously a co-host.
So today we watched the movie Spider-Man No Way Home, which originally premiered December 17th, 2021, in which I did not bring up this part. Good job, us.
What's the information you need?
I have it.
Okay.
I was waiting on you to make sure you were ready.
No. Okay, yeah, I'm good.
So today we watched Spider-Man No Way Home, which originally premiered December 17th, 2021, directed by John Watts, written by Chris McKenna, Eric Sommers, and based on the comic book by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. With Spider-Man's identity now revealed, Peter asks Doctor Strange for help. When a spell goes wrong, dangerous foes from other worlds start to appear, forcing Peter to discover what it truly means to be Spider-Man. So, Andrew, in a second or less, what did you think?
In a second or less.
In a sentence or less. in a second.
Okay.
On your second watch.
On my
the
second
movie's so
watch.
nice, you watched it twice.
I think I hate this movie. It has a lot of things I like. It has more things to like than what I don't like, but what I don't like is so bad that it drags this whole thing down. I realized, I was telling a friend that when I walked out of the theater the first time and this time, that my reaction is just kind of like irritation. This is Endgame 2.0, and it's all of Endgame's problems and some of Endgame's like pros, I guess. I hate it. It's a fun movie. It's a fun movie. I like a lot of it. I would probably watch it again. I think I hate it. What about you?
I like it.
Of course you do, because I hated it. And what we have learned on these is that I don't like any of the Home trilogy movies, really. Even the first one that I do like, I still came out negative on this podcast.
That's because you have a higher set of standards for your boy Joe Spiderman.
Here's the thing, though. Like, we'll get into a lot of this, but, like, this isn't just like they done Spider-Man dirty. This is just a bad movie. It is fueled entirely by the fun meta things that it does, much like Endgame did. But it's structured poorly. All of its ideas are bad. All of it's constant, it's the Marvel through line of like, we want our thing without like actually achieving the thing. Characters just exist to be what they need to be in the scenes. It's a mess. It's a mess of a movie.
Here's my hypocritical opinion here. I can see exactly what you're saying. And
I can see exactly why people like this. Exactly. And I will not hold it against them in any way, shape, or form.
But
I will complain about it on this podcast. And I have had people get very, very mad at me when I told them I didn't like this.
I think, and maybe I will, but I think this felt the most comic booky. And I think, as someone who has watched, I don't know what we're at now, 45 of these movies, or stories, I think this felt the most comic booky. I was able to kind of I think because there was a lot of hand waving, both literally and figuratively, and I think I was finally able to jump on board and hand wave and be fine. I think there are things that happen that needed to happen that are bland, and one of those things where it's like, I know why this is in here, I just don't care. And I know, like, yada, yada, yada. I agree with you with the Endgame comparison, where it's just like, it is a movie-making feat to see all these things come together. But I don't know, it just kind of, you know what, I'm gonna say it, it reminded me of back when I was reading more like standard superhero comics in college, and those stories aren't great either. Like, they're passable. Even the ones I really like. Like, if they just turned One More Day... No. Brand New Day. What's the one where he fights the Sinister Six? Brand New Day. One More Day. Ends of the Earth.
No, Ends of the Earth.
I really like that storyline. If it was a movie, I think it would be passable as well. Like, it's just, I hate to say it because I don't disagree, but like, or because I do disagree. Comics, a lot of them aren't super high art. And that's totally fine and totally fair. And there's a lot of good comics that are.
I agree. But that's also not what I'm talking about here. I mean, some of it is.
Like, I think this stands... I mean, let's just jump in, I guess, because instead of beating around the bush and being like, like, I think we're just going to need to hash it out. I will say, starting off, I did have a wonderful experience in a dark room with strangers, and my favorite part was when they went... That really enhanced my experience. Also, there was like an old guy who had like a machine that translated the movie, and that was neat.
Today's viewing was fine. The first viewing, it was full of people who...
That's because you saw it on like opening weekend, didn't you?
I think I did. There was one guy...
That's just asking for trouble.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like, there was one guy that was like 2 or 3 seats down from me or something. I don't remember. Like, he needed everybody in the theater to know when he recognized the thing. Matt Murdock's on screen. Oh, it's Daredevil! Every fucking thing that happened. It was, but I mean, the entire theater clapped. It was just, this guy also announced it, and it was like literally everything. They said a line from one of the other movies, and he fucking creamed himself, and I mean, I felt it dripping underneath my shoes.
Hey, you told me my brain would follow your brain when I watched this movie, and I would be like, yeah, the Netflix shows are definitely canon.
No. I just said that. I don't even remember what I said. I did not say your brain was, because I said, I also remember specifically saying that you could watch this movie and also come away with the exact same opinion that you had before. Yeah. I just said that I had more information than you, and that they did also bring him in. I think this is, again, it's the same, like, until they say anything, it's just the safe, like, it's in canon if you want it to be, and it's not if it's not. Like,
well, and especially with this movie.
If down the line we do something different, then we did something different and it's not canon, but we're not going to say one way or another. But I feel like this is their way of being like, it's canon if you want to, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like, it's basically canon until we say it's not.
Here's the thing, though. With No Way Home, I think it strikes right down the middle of, and we said this last time, we're both right, because I agree. It's probably one of those things where it's like, it's Schrodinger's canon until it's decided. But especially with No Way Home, fuck it. Everything's canon. It's all multiverse stuff. It's canon.
To be fair, within the logic of this movie, the multiverse stuff, like, no longer... Matt Murdock showing up was not part of the multiverse stuff happening. Because the multiverse stuff didn't happen yet.
No.
By the end of the movie, the multiverse stuff is done.
No, but I'm saying that Matt Murdock that we saw can be an entirely different Matt Murdock. But the old
and that's
Netflix
what I said
Matt
before.
Murdock can still be canon.
That's what I said before.
Because of multiverse stuff. It's a different universe. Like, anything can be... The Wesley Snipes Blade movie can be canon at this point. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about why you hate the movie everyone loves and is objectively good.
I don't think it's objectively good. I don't think it's a good movie. I think it's fine. I think it's completely passable. I think it's paced horribly. But I mean, I think it's fun in the same way that Endgame's fun. It's a fun movie. I'm not going to say that I didn't enjoy watching a lot of it.
So you found that the problems exceeded the good. The bad exceeded the good, turning it into a not good movie for you.
Because I think everything that's not the fun fan service stuff of having the other Spider-Mans and other villains show up in this movie is really, really bad. And it's all just Marvel muck crap, unearned moments. I mean, Kyle and I, outside of this podcast, Kyle got into a big fight with me over me saying I didn't like this movie, which he hasn't even seen. But it was because I equated it. I said something along the lines of like, it's Endgame 2.0. It's like a more interesting to me version of Endgame, but it's also like a worse version of Spider-Verse. Spider-Verse already did this and better. Because Spider-Verse was also an entire movie. Mm-hmm. Like, it stood on its own, it did its own thing, it told a singular story that was clear from beginning to end, it just also did some of the fun multiverse stuff. This is just like a bigger version of that, done worse. But when I equate it to Endgame, then it brought Kyle back onto yelling at me because he doesn't like that I don't like Endgame, and it makes him very, very angry, and there was a lot of cussing involved, and everybody says I hate everything, which is not true, but whatever. I just have to like kowtow and say, you know what, y'all are right. I do hate everything because I can't win the fight. If they say name one thing you like, I name something, and they go, you only like that because nobody else likes it, because usually my go-to is like Speed Racer. For whatever reason, that's like the first thing I jump to. And
You do
like,
only
no one
like
likes
that
Speed
because
Racer.
everyone else hates it.
I love it because it's like just a wild, fun movie. But anyway, basically, I don't know. I have like so many thoughts, and as I was sitting in the theater,
this is
I was
weird.
like,
This is, I mean, and you said it. Every now and then the stars align, and we get to this point where I think everything you're going to say, I'm going to say, yep, I'm going to be the Flint Marko of Seth is to the Watchers of Earth 1999999 is to Flint Marko of Spider-Man No Way Home, where everyone's just like, where you go, hey, this was a bad part of the movie, and Flint Marko goes, I don't care.
yeah, I think Flint is one of my problems, like many, in that I think every character just kind of is there in service to do whatever they need to do for the scene they're in. It doesn't really matter. Flint flip-flops because they want to have all the villains fight at the end, but then his whole thing at the end where he's like, all I want to do is go home, so I'm going to side with the villains who want to stop you from sending me home? Whereas if I sided with you, you'd possibly cure me and also send me home. For certain. But if I side with them and stop you, like, I know he's like, give me the box, but siding with the villains ain't going to get you that box, bro. They don't want to go home. They're not going to let you push the button any more than the Spider-Mans will.
Yeah.
It's dumb. But, like, I don't know. Part of this movie is a whole thing of, like, you know, there's that bit at the end where the other Spider-Men are like, we don't know how to be a team. And he's like, I do know how to be a team. And then there's the whole thing about, like, I got my friends, and my friends are important to me, and it's, like, a big deal at the end when they don't remember me. Ned and MJ are not characters. Ned has not been a character since the first movie. The second movie, he's just around for joke bits. MJ is not a character. Everybody has, like, their personality traits and everything are basically thrown into this movie. May is not a character until this movie, and they basically turn her into a completely different character than she was in the other two movies. And again, she's barely in Far From Home. It just like does everything to get what it needs to do, and like this is the most
so
MCU
funny.
this is the most late game MCU movie I've ever seen, because the entire movie basically uses itself as a justification to get Spider-Man where he needs to be. Every scene is just a justification to get everyone where they need to be for that scene or the next scene, so that they can just like do the thing they want. And this movie ends basically going, and now Spider-Man is the Spider-Man everybody wanted from the fucking start. We did 3 movies of an origin for it. And it's only this movie, and it doesn't accomplish that. But in the end, like, the end results, like, as I've said before, the MCU is always like, the ends justify the means. And in the end, like, I am way more interested for a Spider-Man movie now than ever before. But, like, I don't like how we got here. I feel gross about how we got here. Like, it's icky. I don't like it. It didn't earn it.
It's funny. This is, I mean, again, I'm you.
You don't care.
You're me. I mean, I think this felt vacuumy. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you and say that, like, oh, well, don't you have to, like, watch the Doctor Strange movie? Don't you have to watch, like, all the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man? You got to know all that stuff, and, like, you got to watch the previous. Like, I mean, I'm biased because I did watch those, but this
I
felt
think it gives you enough
contained.
information
Like,
within itself to do its own thing, but it's also like, again, as part of like the ending of the Spider-Man trilogy, like, it's not.
I guess here's
Like,
the thing.
None of this is set up by the other movies. It's just like this movie exists entirely in a vacuum. Yes, it brings in other characters, and like whether their moments really work or not, mostly revolves around you caring about these actors and the characters they portrayed, you know, a decade plus ago. But also,
I'm going to disagree with, like, and I mean, I don't know. I don't watch movies, at least not like this, and at least not in like the last 10 years. But like, I mean, did the other, I really don't remember like the other Spider-Man movies feeling like one went into the other. Like, these feel like
what
stories.
are you saying?
Well, you said, I thought you had said that like this story doesn't need the other two doesn't need Far From Home and Homecoming.
I think I said that in...
Oh, is this another thing where I can't listen to what you say? Listen to what you think?
Well, no, because I think you're extrapolating, like, say what you think I said.
I thought you said that this is not a good culmination of the Spider-Man trilogy because the other two stories don't matter in this.
No. I mean, that's true, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that, like, this movie in and of its... I mean, part of it is whether you agree that a movie can't... Like, these movies can stand on their own, but they can't, because the way you always look at it, it's part of the MCU. And while I go like, it's the MCU and each movie can kind of be its own thing, but they're like connected to each other. Like this is part of like the other Spider-Man movies. And I agree. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, I think are more directly connected, but like the original Raimi trilogy is just kind of like 3 Spider-Man movies, and like the events of the previous movies occurred to the Spider-Man that happened in the later movies, but in the end, like they're all their own like one and done
just
things,
stories.
and it's mostly fine. My problem is like this is called the home trilogy. This is a trilogy, whether it works as a trilogy or not. This directly moves on from the ending of the previous movie, so that movie has to count. But it's also like telling me that these characters have relationships and experience and like characters that don't matter. And it's also a movie, like you read that synopsis that said like he learns what it truly means to be a Spider-Man. That's not what you do in the third fucking movie of your trilogy. And like this is basically when this movie ends, it basically ends going like, and that's the origin of Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fucking dumb, and it's gross. It's really gross.
You know, it's funny because I think on another day, maybe I've been watching more movies lately, and so I've had my fill of weird esoteric crap, but I don't know. I think you're not wrong. I mean, I don't think it's still a Marvel movie, and I still feel the same. But I guess with this, I was able to just kind of go in and be like, you know what? If I get a little bit of fan wanking and circle jerking, and like I get to see like 3 Spider-Man or whatever, and they do Spider-Man things, that's fine. Like, what's this? Is this like reference, Doctor Strange is referencing old movies? Yeah, I've seen, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is fucking, 12, 14 years old at this point. Like, it's part of the zeitgeist. I'm just kind of, I guess, strapped in, for lack of a better term.
And that's fine. Like, I completely understand why people like this movie. I get it. I think, like I said at the beginning...
And it's
like,
probably just me just not wanting to argue isn't the right term, but not wanting... Again, does Zendaya have a character? Does Ned have a character? Like, yeah, they're not fleshed out. They're totally, like, cardboard cutouts and things like that, but they suffice. It's the same thing as, like...
I agree.
If I'm watching...
The problem is
like,
that this movie... Again, I think... In isolation, this movie is kind of like, this movie's fine. It does a lot of fun stuff. There's way more fun stuff in this movie than stuff that pisses me off. My problem is mostly like, I was trying to explain this to Kyle, so I'm going to try and do something where I have to explain a lot, and it's going to get weird. I've said before that I like Kamen Rider, and I like the Kamen Rider movies, and how they're dumb. And I was trying to explain to Kyle, because he was getting very mad at me, why I think Endgame doesn't work. Why I think the moments aren't earned. And he's like, why don't you think those moments are earned? They are. And it's hard to really explain this to people who think they are earned. Like, I get it. To me, those aren't earned. I don't feel like we hit those moments. It feels like it just rolls off of the fact that the fans want to see it, and that's enough for them. And it's weird, because I was comparing to a Kamen Rider movie, the one that you and I watched, Heisei Generations Forever.
Did I watch it?
That's the one that you and I watched when it was like the first one they ever like officially premiered, or not premiered, but officially like aired.
The only one I remember is like the retelling of like Kamen Rider
we watched
V1
the build. We watched the Build Geo movie.
I remember nothing. I do not think I did.
We did.
I do not remember. The only thing I remember is that like dark,
the weird
retelling,
like retelling one. Yeah. No. We watched Heisei Generations Forever. Anyway, point is, I think the difference for me and why like this movie really doesn't work is because it's not just a movie of fun moments. It thinks those fun moments, like it has like scenes where it thinks those moments are like these bigger emotional moments are earned. And it feels forced. It feels disingenuous.
This isn't to give a pass, at least for us. For other people, yeah. This is a problem with the entire MCU.
Oh, yeah. I'm just saying, like, because I was telling Kyle, he's like, why? Well, part of it is you don't like the MCU. And I said, that's true. Like, that is, I'm not going to deny that. Part of why this stuff doesn't work for me and why these moments don't work.
Because it just doesn't work for me.
Because I don't care for the MCU. And I said, and I'm going to make your defense for you, Kyle, but I'm also going to try and explain what does and doesn't work by using Kamen Rider, because in Heisei Generations Forever, it does very much the same thing that Endgame does. Where Endgame has all the heroes show up and a million things, and there's a huge battle, and I'm just sitting there going, this is fucking dumb, and it's unearned, and it's just like, it's cool to see all these actors, but what does it mean? On the opposite end of the spectrum, in Heisei Generations Forever, there's a part where all the Kamen Riders of the Heisei era show up. So there's like 20 different riders that all appear. And then there's like a big battle against mooks with all the riders where they all get to do like a catchphrase or they do one of their signature moves. And the difference for me between these two things is in Endgame, it thinks it's like a big epic moment, and it knows that the fans are going to clap because they're seeing the thing, and it feels like this is the culmination of all these movies. This is what we've been working towards. And it just feels very like self-congratulatory and self-important. Whereas my takeaway from Heisei Generations Forever is in that movie, and part of it is also in like, you have to hand wave a lot of like, in Endgame and in this, you have to hand wave a lot of stuff. You can't think too hard about a lot of it. You guys
There's not even
like
go fridge logic in this movie. There's like theater
You just got to be like, they want to do the thing and you got to let them. And for me, I'm not letting them. And that's on me. That's not even really on the movie. That's on me.
I don't know. There's glaring
yeah. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of it is just like, you gotta let it do its thing. And if you don't want, like, I hate the Thanos battle in Endgame, and some people are fine with it, but for me, the reasoning, like, I hate that battle, and the reason that they get to that battle makes it even worse, because I think that reason is fucking dumb. For me, the big difference in Heisei Generations Forever is, in that movie, someone, like, I forget exactly the specifics, but someone does something that, like, changes the timeline so that Kamen Rider has always been a fictional character in the world. And at the end, when all the riders show up, it's because evil is everywhere and people believe in Kamen Rider, but they're believing them as the character that they watched on TV. So there's like kids who grew up watching like a lot of the modern Kamen Riders who chant for the rider that was on when they were watching. And that rider just appears through the power of the belief in heroes. And there's also, because this spans the entire Heisei generation, which is like 20 years, you know, there's adults with those kids who are cheering for the rider that was on at their time. And that rider appears. But it knows that this is stupid. It knows, I mean, stupid is probably the wrong word, but it knows that it's silly. It knows that it doesn't make sense, but it's about the feeling. I don't feel like the MCU movies are about the feeling of like, what does it mean to have a superhero? Because these movies aren't for kids. This is, what does this IP mean to you and how can it line our pockets? And I know that is a negative viewpoint from me, but that's how that all reads. And while Kamen Rider very much is made to sell toys, and they definitely want money, it also knows that like part of the trailers for Heisei Generations were like, remember what it was like to be a kid. Remember what it was like to believe in superheroes. And a lot of these Kamen Rider movies, and Heisei Generations Forever in particular, is about like, remember how important it is to have heroes who believe in doing good things because good things are important, and just believing in them is enough. And for that works for me. And it lets me get to those fun moments where I get to watch these writers do the dumb things that I like watching them do, and it's all silly and stupid, but that moment hits on an emotional level because it speaks to me for the reasons that those characters matter to me. Whereas in these movies, I don't feel like, there's a couple moments, but I don't feel like, again, I'm speaking more of Endgame than this movie, but like, I don't feel like it really speaks to why those are important. It just goes, this is the thing you want to see. Look at it.
You know, I want to point out up front that I don't want it to come off as contrarian. However, I think there is a lot to be said about Powerhouse MCU underdog Sentai Kamen Rider.
Sure. I mean, this is not a 1-for-1, and it is also like, I care more about Kamen Rider in general.
I think you bring up a good point where, and what I was thinking of during a lot of your monologue is Kamen Rider, and I'm not into Kamen Rider, but everything I've seen and everything you've told me, and you know, I do my due diligence and send you memes and crap and look up stuff for you. I think, I don't know, we're on the other side of the fucking ocean. It seems like people have fun making Kamen Rider. MCU is a product of the Hollywood system, which is the product of just meddling hands and producers and bureaucratic red tape and things like that, from what I understand. I don't know. Allegedly, sure. And I think it's easy, and I'll be the first to say that I am a problem, or, you know, I believe and follow this complaint that I'm going to make. I think it's easy to sit there and get pessimistic about this shit. I think it's easy to sit there and say, this is a money-making machine. I don't think Kamen Rider is a money-making machine.
I mean, it is. It definitely is. It exists to sell toys. Every episode is like, here's a new gimmick that you can go to the store and buy. Right, but
at the same time, the money-making machine of Japanese cinema and TV is way lower than the money-making machine of Hollywood. Like, these are two different levels. Having a hit in Japan isn't going to make you $600 billion. Having a hit in Hollywood can. And so there's just higher stakes, I believe. I mean, it's the same. I mean, you watch there's just not as much money in visual effects or anything like that from what I've seen. I don't know. I'm just saying that, and I don't think it's a falsehood, that the Hollywood system is just, there's way more money tied into it, which means way more people have way more money tied into it, which means the decisions are more important, which means you can't necessarily, like, things have to be so meticulously crafted.
I agree. And I mean, I guess I went on that little monologue, and I mean, it's completely off the cuff. Like, I had this talk with Kyle, and he cut me off multiple times to yell at me. So, like, this was also me just trying to get my thought out there. And I don't think I did it, because I don't think it really explains anything. I think I think it puts a certain framework on my brain, not so much saying this is right or this is wrong, just seeing, like, what I see out of it versus what everyone else does. But I think part of my big problem with this is, like, yes, the movie's safe. Yes, it feels like a money-making scheme, for better or for, like, I mean, that's mean to say, but, like, yes, it feels like it's designed to make money and it's making the safer choices, but it also just feels, again, a lot of it is just, it's just, like, unearned. It gets to moments that I don't feel hit, and they feel false, and they feel weird.
Well, we've talked before about, to go back to your Kamen Rider thing, to have a place to stop that no one else but you and I and a few other people will ever understand. We have gone on record to say that we want fun superhero movies. And I don't watch Kamen Rider. I started Forza for you. I didn't care enough to watch it, but through you and through the stuff I see and stuff like that, like, Kamen Rider looks fun. It looks like a fun property. In the same way, to make it well known that it is made to sell toys, in the same way that all the cartoons I grew up were fun. That's what we like. That's why we like Speed Racer. The MCU, we have complained from so many movies that it's not fun. But the problem is that they're backtracking. Now all these movies try to be fun. But you're 40 films in. Like, you have an established setting. That's why, to me, this doesn't feel earned. It doesn't feel earned in Endgame, because these fun comic booky moments were shunned in the first half of the MCU.
I mean, it feels like, you know, they spent the first, 20 movies knitting socks, only to realize that everybody wanted sweaters. And now they're like, these are the movies, like, the last couple movies feel like they're starting to unravel things so that they can try and build what everybody wanted. And I think, like, I like the idea of the MCU. I like the idea of the MCU being interconnected. I like the idea of the MCU having its own rules, just from, like, a logistical standpoint. I think figuring all that stuff out is fun. Like, in a writer's room, it's got to be fun to try and, like, slot these pieces together and go, how can we get from, like, I think that's a fun puzzle. I don't think it's a fun movie to watch, though. And I think it would be more interesting if we had an MCU that was literally just, like, turning on a Saturday morning cartoon. And you just, like, went to the movies and you're like, I'm watching Spider-Man. And, like, in this universe, I don't need to explain how Spider-Man does this or that. Here's the Sandman. It's not we don't need to know Sandman's origin, or they can say Sandman's origin, but it doesn't need to be Sandman's first appearance. It doesn't need to be Sandman's third appearance. It could be, it's just another Thursday and Sandman's robbing a bank, or, I don't know, Doc Ock is doing a science, like, it'd be nice if we just could make movies. Like you said, like, this movie exists in a vacuum, and all the movies exist in a vacuum, but they don't. It'd be nice if they did. If you just, like, they were all connected, and you could have, like, the same actors show up and do a thing, and, like, the events of one movie take effect in another movie, or at least aren't washed away or ignored. But, like, it'd be more interesting to just have a universe where we can just go, like, they can't sit down and go, how do we get to have X character show up in this movie? And everyone's got to sit down.
Out of all the hand waving, just hand wave that crap. Like,
yeah.
But I think it's also important to say that we want fun superhero. Like, Kamen Rider is a show for kids. The MCU is not a series for kids.
Most of these movies I don't feel like you can show to kids. My friend has a 4-year-old, and she always has to ask me if X or Y Marvel movie
I wouldn't show these
is going to be too scary for him.
I wouldn't show these to a 4-year-old. But I mean, and I think with kids... I don't know how to word this. With kids, you can have Monster of the Week. With adults, whether or not you can, I feel like people don't think you can. And superheroes, to me, are a little Monster of the Week-ish. At least, like, I don't know. I got out of reading superhero comics because I wanted more indie stuff. I wanted different stories. And there's plenty of superhero stories out there that do different things than Saturday morning cartoons. And that's totally fine and totally legit. And I think there's a lot of good ones. And I guess for me, the MCU... I mean, we've talked about, I know I've talked about this before, where the problem with the MCU is that if these were comic stories, fine, whatever. It's the fact that these are a thing where I think some are more vacuumy than others. I think some are more non-vacuumy than others. But they, without a doubt, want you to watch everything. With cartoons, watching the old Spider-Man cartoon, fucking miss 4 months and you don't really miss anything. You can pick it back up. Who cares? And I think, one, because syndication isn't really a thing anymore, that just doesn't exist. And two, I don't even remember what my train of thought was. And it's just something that's what, to me, is missing here. And, with all the fun as it is to see Tobey Maguire, to see Andrew Garfield, to see Tom Holland all in the same movie, and it's Spider-Man stuff, this is neat, this is fun, it's the same way Endgame was fun, where it's just this is a movie-making marvel, because...
Hey, it's a Marvel made that movie.
Because it's just how did they, I saw at the end, it was we want to thank the true believer, Aryavad, or RV, whatever his name is, or their name is, for making this possible. And it's just yeah, this is crazy to me that we can do this. The problem is that when you take off the veneer, when you take off the petroleum jelly, you just sit there and you're just it's because all of these were failed attempts at making millions of dollars. I mean, granted, the first trilogy did really well, and it's a trilogy. How many movies are you going to make, I guess? But they showed the Batman trailer and the previews. And I watched it, and I was just another Batman movie. And it's just the same. It's one thing, you make Tim Burton Batman, and then you make the other guy Batman.
Joel Schumacher.
Who did? Christian Bale.
Christopher Nolan.
And those are at least different movies. The Batman looks just like another Christopher Nolan Batman.
I think you may have seen my tweet about it, but it looks fine. I don't think it looks bad so much as it just doesn't look interesting. But I'm so ready for us to stop taking Batman seriously.
Well, same thing with Spider-Man, where it's just Raimi's trilogy and Garfield's trilogy. Duology? Was there 3?
There were only 2.
Duology. Those are the same movies. It's just, they reboot it. If you're going to reboot it, just do something different.
I will say, to its credit, because I rewatched Amazing Spider-Man 1 recently, I am a defender of that movie. I don't think it's as bad as everyone says. I also don't think it's very...
Is it better than this?
It's not great. The big thing with that movie, though, is it is trying to prove that it's different from the Raimi movies and that it has value in this post-Nolan world. And so it tries to make a darker version of Spider-Man. It's still not dark, but it has a lot of darker themes. It puts in a little conspiracy. There's a lot of stuff about him, stuff that I think is interesting, though it doesn't quite work. There's a lot of interesting stuff about him being a little more aggressive, being a little more vengeful.
And I guess to me, it's some of the curse of live action. I only watched the first Amazing Spider-Man and I remember not liking it. But at least Tim Burton's Batman looks different than Nolan's Batman. If you saw a clip out of context of either, you could probably know they're different movies. If you saw clips out of context between Amazing and Raimi, granted, those are 20 years old at this point. What do I know? I haven't seen them since they came out. I feel they would feel very similar. And that's what I'm getting at. And I think Tom Holland's Spider-Man is also there's more Avengers crap and MCU muck in Tom Holland's Spider-Man, but it's all kind of the same general idea and theme. And
I'm going to disagree with you there.
I feel if Tobey Maguire...
in the end, I think they're all doing their own version of Spider-Man, but it's just it's Spider-Man, just with a different... Raimi's is a little more campy and silly. The Amazing movies are a little more self-serious, and the MCU one is mostly just it's a little more of a comedy, and it's more MCU-y. But I think they're different. The big thing is just they're making a Spider-Man movie. None of them is doing anything insane like Into the Spider-Verse did, where it's animated and it's got more stylistic ideas. It's a little more out there. It's more comic booky. But I think that's the limit of live action. I think the three sets of Spider-Man movies are about as different as when you go between Tim Burton to Joel Schumacher to Nolan. I think the big thing is just the Nolan and the new movie look like they could be the same fucking movie.
I guess I don't know. I haven't seen these movies in forever. I'm talking out of my ass. I guess to me, when I think of Burton Batman and Nolan Batman, they have distinct visual styles. They have distinct narrative styles.
And I think Raimi has a distinct style through his 3 movies that is not found in Amazing or this.
That's fair. They have the same visual style to me.
Because I think I don't remember Amazing Spider-Man 2 very well, but I think there's some impressive, at the time, special effects and stuff in the Amazing. I think the big thing with Amazing movies is I don't think they really have much of their own unique style cinematography wise. Raimi has his own style. You look at his movies, you know his movies when you're looking at them. And I think these movies, these 3 home movies, their big thing is just their MCU movies. So they got the same MCU feel that they all have.
See, I guess to me, like, having Tobey and Andrew Garfield with Tom Holland in here, they feel very samey.
I do agree when all three of them are swinging around, it's hard to tell which one's Toby and which one's...
Like, if you did, Batman No Way Home, I feel like everybody would feel like their own voice.
See, again, from a visual standpoint, yes, and I think also from talking to them and everything, I think these three actors play a different version of Spider-Man and a different version of Peter Parker. I think it's once they put the masks on, Holland is the only one that stands out because he's got a stupid fucking different looking suit in this one, and the other two have very similar looking suits because there is a completely different ugly suit in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, but they got rid of it in the second one for a more comic book appropriate suit. I think the big problem with this is the only real difference between those two Spider-Man when they put on their masks is the eyes. But when they talk differently. Like, I'm not just talking like they're different actors, so they have different sounding voices. I mean, they have a different manner of speaking. I think part of the thing with this movie is one of my big problems is Andrew Garfield is kind of like the joke Spider-Man of these three in this movie because it is made reactionary for the fans who did not like his two movies. So they kind of make him the butt of a joke where he's, they have to do that thing where he's like, you're amazing. And he's like, I mean, his Spider-Man is kind of like that, but there's a lot of like really hammering home that like he kind of sucks and we all know it, but isn't he great? We love him. We love him, the sucky little goofball, the little shit stain. We all love him, which I really like Andrew Garfield. I think out of all three, he's my favorite.
I'll concede here and say I shouldn't be talking because I haven't seen either of those series since it came out. I guess here they felt similar to me. They felt like they were MCU written, which is fair. I mean, they're not written by the original writers.
Semi-true. But I mean, I think in this I think Toby is like the older Spider-Man that lived a life.
And I mean, some of this might just be that there's a weird thing where they have like, I don't know, when did they come into the movie? And 30 minutes of that was a fight scene where it didn't matter. But like, they all quipped, and I know that's a Spider-Man.
Sure, but that's a Spider-Man thing.
But they all MCU quipped, and I don't know. I guess it just seemed like Toby could have said Andrew's lines and I wouldn't have batted an eye. Tom could have said Toby's like...
In the few moments where I can come to this movie's defense, I'm going to do it. I will come to its defense here. I think they are three different characters, distinct.
And you recently watched the other Spider-Man movies, right?
I only watched Amazing like a month ago. I have not seen the original trilogy since they were in theaters.
I won't disagree that Toby feels probably a little older. I mean, I guess he doesn't make as many... He might not make any quips. Well, he does. But Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland... I'm just going to keep backtracking until you agree with me. Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland feel very similar.
I disagree. Tom Holland sucks.
Tom Holland feels very similar to himself.
I hate his Peter Parker in this movie. I think he's fine in the first movie. I said my piece about him in the second movie. In this movie, I think he's irritating. I think he's annoying. I also, I really, really hate movies where everything kicks off because someone did something stupid and annoying that was easily avoided. And in this movie, the entire movie kicks off because he does something stupid and irritating that's easily avoided. And he fucks up Steven's spell even after Steven is like, okay, no more. Let's stop. And he's like, okay, but I also got to do another thing. I'm so zany. And it's like, Steven could have just screwed up the spell, or Peter could have, at the last second, accidentally done something and it fucked it up, but instead it had to be this goofy, zany, annoying scene where he won't shut the fuck up.
It's kind of MCU in general.
Fuck up. Yeah, and he's just so fucking annoying. He just never shuts up.
It's his movie.
So there's a lot of he just really gets under my skin. And I also, so to actually talk about this...
Is this a Robert Downey Jr. thing?
To get into this actual movie, I think another big problem with this movie, and it's just an MCU problem that is in this movie, and therefore it is something that brings this movie down, is I've said before, the MCU doesn't want to deal with the fallout of anything. It just wants to use its things as an excuse for the next set piece. I think the beginning of this movie is actually interesting. I like that whole opening scene.
I think it's terrible.
I think that stuff is fun, where he's freaking out, trying to swing around the city. It's whatever, but it's just fun, kind of Spider-Man-y swinging.
It's funny, you say that, and I say it's terrible, and then I'm like, I like when Tom Holland punched a guy, and you're like, that's stupid. And I would be like, yeah, that is stupid in a different world, but in this one, I'm like, whatever. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to see all these three Spider-Men do things.
This movie does not care about what happened in the last movie. This movie basically gets that out of the way as quickly as possible. I know that it's what sets this, the plot of the movie in motion, but it doesn't care. It doesn't deal with a world that knows Peter's Spider-Man. It moves on from that very quickly. Once Doc Ock shows up, it effectively no longer cares that his identity is public. It doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it does. I know that there are things that use that where that's how J. Jonah Jameson comes in, and then he's not even affecting the plot, but then he's there to videotape stuff that doesn't matter. But it gets that out of the way quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It effectively stops caring about it. And that's annoying because while I think it doesn't earn outing his identity, I think that's something that the MCU can do to prove its identity out there. To say, like, this is our Spider-Man. If we're going to make a different version of Spider-Man that's got Stark tech and shit, this is what we're doing different. His identity is public. We'll just go with it and roll with it and deal with a world that has to do that. But instead, I mean, in your defense, you said, or in the movie's defense, you did say it was comic booky, and I'm not going to disagree with you here, but it does the comic booky thing of, like, we did a thing and now we're taking it back because we can just gobbledygook whatever we want. And that's annoying.
So I always hated these origin stories. One, I read comic books, so I'm a big boy who don't need them. But this was one where the beginning bugged me because I sat down in my seat in a dark room with strangers and I said, just give me 3 Spider-Men and I'll leave. And I won't badmouth you on my podcast. I'll just leave and never look back. And we'll just never acknowledge it. And then it starts off and it's like, everybody knows who Spider-Man is. And I was like, I don't care. Just show me 3 fucking Spider-Men. Like, I'm not here for this.
See, I can see now when you said you hated that and I was like, I don't know. It was kind of fun. I see exactly why. And you know what? I'm going to support you entirely. Because you're right. Like, if you're only coming in here to see the nonsense crap and this, for me, I wanted to see the fallout because I wanted to see the puzzle of what we do with the fallout.
But you wouldn't hire all these actors to deal with that.
Well, no, I agree.
But it is a better story.
But I also said, like,
or
when
more
we watched,
interesting.
I mean, I said this when I watched it the first time, and I think I mentioned it on the podcast when we rewatched Far From Home. Like, they're just going to undo it. Like, I don't know why they ended with it for a stinger to excite everybody for the next movie.
But then it doesn't matter.
But it doesn't actually care. It doesn't matter. It just undoes it. And, like, I find that stuff annoying. And so, for me, I was like, I want to see what you do with this kernel. I know you're going to undo it in this movie. I know what this movie is. I've seen the fucking trailers. But I want to see what you do with it. I want to see how we get there. And I was actually surprised that we spent longer with it than I thought we would.
And here's the other thing.
It's no time.
We've already seen identity fallout in the MCU. Tony revealed himself.
Yeah, and that effectively doesn't matter as well.
But, like, Tony got way less attention than Peter did. How do people even know where this high school kid lives?
Well, he was swinging around.
But, I mean, they just immediately know him and his girlfriend and, like, they all watched the other 2 movies. Like, it's weird where it's just something where it's like Peter Parker is Spider-Man, but, like, the world doesn't know who Peter Parker is.
It is a weird, like, immediate reaction thing, but it's also something that's like, I don't know. I've seen people get, like, doxxed in 3 seconds on Twitter. Like, if you're the Twitter person of the day, give it, like, an hour and a half, and everybody knows where you lived, where you went to school, the last time you said a racial slur.
I mean, that's fair, I guess, and it's shorthand in the movie and stuff, but I don't know. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way, where I was just like, I don't care about any of this stuff, and you're already shorthanding and blowing by all of it anyways, so what's the point? I will say, for a movie that I just wanted to see comic booky things, I was fine with Matt Murdock showing up. I'm glad that they had him catch the brick, but I'm glad he didn't, like, he was just kind of Matt Murdock. They didn't try and do, like, I'm Daredevil and I'm in another movie later.
I agree, and he's a fun cameo, and they don't need and shouldn't do any more with him, but it's also, and he has no place in this movie beyond that scene. But also part of me is just like, at that point where I'm like, the only thing saving this movie is the fun crap of having other characters from other shit show up in it. Fucking throw Daredevil in. What do I give?
Here's the
shit?
thing.
Let him show up.
We complain about Marvel muck. Fucking muck this shit up. Like, at the end when he's...
I guess that's where I'm at.
At the end when he's web swinging around the Rockefeller Plaza, I was like, where's fucking Hawkeye? It's Christmas. They're here. Blow up. Let me see the tree blow up. Like, just...
That's, I guess, that's where I'm at, where I'm just like, I'm with you. Like, do I want it to do that? Do I think it works? No. But at that point, like, that's all that this movie is for me. Everything that's not just like, look at what we did, does not work for me. Every emotional beat fucking sucks. I got one emotional reaction out of this movie. This movie got one emotional reaction out of me. Do you want to guess where it was?
Was it? So I had one emotional reaction, and I mean
legitimate tears welling.
I had tears welling, and it was not Marissa Tomei's death, because I could not care. It was something at the end. I don't want to say it was when he was, like, saying bye to everybody, but maybe it was.
So my one and only emotional response to this movie is when Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man catches MJ.
Oh, yeah, and that was good.
The problem is, it cuts from it fast. It lets it linger for a minute, but then it's like a hard, awkward cut. because we don't have time for that stuff. But that was like, that's what I
It doesn't
wanted to
give
see.
him
That's
his
like
moment
some kind
that
of,
he missed.
and again, like he does talk about what happens in this movie, but it's not really in this movie. That moment only works if you watched his movies and also know just Spider-Man in general.
I honestly don't really remember anything of the Amazing series. I think...
You never saw the second one, so you never saw Gwen's death anyway.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't... I was going to say that, but I was like, maybe it was in the first one, he's going to call me out. But I think Andrew Garfield they had him say the line, like, I understood what that meant.
It's there. Like, it's not like this movie doesn't set it up, but it doesn't work unless you...
If you watch the series, then you get the payoff. If you didn't, then it works, but it's not that Kamen Rider moment of like, he had his comeuppance, like he did it. I think I welled up, I think when he was saying bye to MJ and she was like, just tell me you love me when you see me again. And I was like...
See, that was also for me where I'm just like, I don't care about her or Ned. I want to, but they don't feel like characters to me.
They did what they needed to do for me, and it was one of those things where it's like, I can tell Tom cares, and I'm like, the problem with that, and I like, yeah, I welled up when he was like saying goodbye to his buddy and whatnot. I mean, it's like if you were going to forget all about me, and you'd be like, this is so nice, I don't have to deal with this shit. And I'd be like, but Andrew, Kristen would be pissed because I wouldn't share half of it with you. But it doesn't help that I'm going to just jump into this end problem here. In the same way, I don't understand the spell at the beginning, and I know...
The spell at the end makes no fucking sense.
Okay, here's the thing.
When we sat down, I was like, I want to do this from beginning to end because every time we sit down and talk about stuff, I always forget a million things because we jump all over the place. So I want to go.
But if you remember, then what do they say? If you don't remember, then it's probably not important.
But every time I edit an episode, I'm like, oh, I never brought up that thing I wanted to talk about. And I had like, every once in a while, there's like a whole like thing I wanted to say. And it's just like, never, it's fine. Like, this is fine. This is working.
This is working.
The ending of the movie.
No, can we talk? Let's not do the ending yet. We got to build up to this.
Okay.
This is how I want to structure this part. This is Seth's magic part. This is Seth's magic corner. You can put your little like... Okay, first spell doesn't make any fucking sense. And I know this has been talked to death because they talked about it in when the trailers was released. And they're just like, why doesn't Peter just tell people again? And I understand it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, because I guess they won't believe you or something. I don't know. I don't get it. Because
they want the movie. I think it's stupid. The only one that even comes close to like making any sort of sense is when he's like, oh, what about May? I can't, like, when May found out the first time, it was like a whole thing and she was real pissed.
And I don't want to go through
I can't deal with that again. And I was like, whatever. But like MJ and Ned, I'm sure if you went to them and said like, hey, you guys did know.
Yeah, like you guys are in a comic book universe.
Probably roll with it.
Like,
yeah.
But here's, okay, and I know people have also thrown Strange under the bus because it's like, just tell the kid what the spell does. Hey, I can, we can't turn back time.
They effectively just scene change to him doing
We can't turn back time, but
like,
I can make people forget. And then be like, how many people would you like to forget, Peter? Like, I can fine-tune the spell however you want. You just have to tell me up front. So he does that, whatever. It doesn't make any sense. Comic book logic, I'll take it. Whatever. The spell at the end makes no goddamn fucking sense. I said before, this isn't even fridge logic. This is theater logic. Where I'm sitting there as Strange is casting it, and I'm like, how does this work? When do they forget? What if Peter just stands there, and then they forget, and they're like, wow, what happened? I don't know why I'm here, but here's Spider-Man, and it's Peter, and I get it. And then Peter tells them.
Well, to be fair, they don't remember the spell at the end. They won't remember Peter at all. So they'll be like, "There's Spider-Man," and I don't know who this guy is. But like, you're right. Like they do the spell, and then it just cuts to like, I don't know, 6 months later, or whatever.
And I'm like, why are you leaving?
Do they just like wake up and they're at the Statue of Liberty? What does Strange think he was doing? What does everyone think was happening at the Statue of Liberty? Do they remember a bunch of villains?
Do they remember Spider-Man
Flash Thompson
fighting?
wrote a fucking book.
Yeah,
like Flash wrote a book. What happened to his book? It's
what
not
happened
like
to any media?
Time. I know. There's a fucking video out there.
There's a whole thing where J. Jonah Jameson is being like Peter Parker's Spider-Man. But apparently that was erased.
J. Jonah Jameson was on the phone with Spider-Man immediately before this battle.
But apparently that was all erased?
And everybody does video calls with their face there.
It makes no sense. Just go back in fucking time. That's it. It makes no goddamn sense. Especially since, I mean, like, well, and then when he's at May's grave with Foggy, and they're like, how do you know each other? And it's just like, through Spider-Man. And it's like, this doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
How did Spider-Man know her? Like, what do you mean? I knew her through Spider-Man.
Because his face is on the post, on the billboards, but they don't undo that.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's still stuff that, I'm sure somewhere someone spray painted "fuck you, Peter Parker" and a big old arrow to his dick or something.
Well, there was the graffiti of like Spider-Man, of Peter Parker's I don't know. There was like a graffiti thing.
Oh yeah, where he's got like devil horns and half his face is the spider.
But like
mask.
There was stuff. I don't know how much time passed when Matt Murdock was like, by the way, the beginning of this movie doesn't matter, Pete. But Foggy, this matters to you, but it doesn't matter to the movie, so nobody still cares. And, like, when the final battle thing takes place. But there was, like, billboards. Did they all just, like, remove those billboards and mindfuck stupors? That stuff doesn't just erase.
And again, it like my Joe bit at the beginning that I kind of botched because I was going off the cuff. Like, it doesn't care. It's for another movie to worry out the logistics. It's the same thing with the Snap. Like, the Snap didn't really care about the world. It was for another thing to explain what happened. Like, when everybody comes back, it's for other movies to figure out the logistics of that. It's for the other shows and movies.
I wrote my 2.5 hours.
Give a little bit more information and worry about it. And for this, it's like, that's for the next Spider-Man writer who is hopefully not John Watts to figure out. Like, actually, I don't think he wrote.
He just directed. Chris McKenna and Eric Sommers.
But that's for someone else to figure out. That's their job. And then we'll get something that says, like, you know, someone saying that, like, a billboard mysteriously disappeared because of something, or like, I don't know, maybe it's like fucking, maybe it's like fucking They Live, where, like,
wasn't there a billboard
everybody
here?
Like takes off their glasses and all the billboards change to Peter Parker's face spray painted with devil horns on it.
But like, I understand comic logic. I read comics for a long time, and I can hand wave a bunch of shit. This, you can't hand wave this. This is a problem with your movie that shouldn't have been in the script.
It's because we're at the end of the movie now.
It's because I'm in post-nut clarity. I am now starting to think of the story. Like, like, I don't know. I mean, I think it honestly is where I'm just like, yep, I saw what I wanted. And then they're like, here's stupid fucking story. I'm like, what? This is what I've been watching? Are you kidding me? This sucks. Like,
see, but that's how I felt through the entire movie.
See, for the first...
See, that bit... That like epiphany, that was me through the entire thing because I was already just like not in the mood going in.
During the beginning, I was sitting there being like, just show me 3 fucking Spider-Men. And then it showed me 3 Spider-Men and I went, yay! And then they left and I was like, what is this fucking shit? Like, it's bad. It's so careless. It's so just like, they blew their budget on Toby and Andrew and then they're just like, hey, Chris, what you got for the ending? And he's like, what? I thought you wrote the ending. No, you were supposed to write it. Okay, but nobody's going to care. Okay.
The closest it gets to caring about anything in this, and it's not really caring, is that they show that Peter has like a GED textbook
in
his box because it's like he doesn't have an identity anymore, so he needs to get his GED because he doesn't have any.
Because he didn't exist, I guess.
Documented.
There's no,
education.
all his birth certificate and social security card and all this stuff, it just magically disappeared. Like, I know it's magic, but that's not the spell that Doctor Strange... It's like a monkey's paw spell, where he's like, okay, Peter, no one's going to remember you. He's like, okay, great. Also, literally everything is going to vanish. You won't even... Like, you won't be able to do anything because you will not exist. You can't get a bank account. I don't know how you're renting an apartment because you can't get money or income because you can't provide any sort of semblance of identity.
Peter, here's a sweatshirt and some gym shorts because those clothes, you never fucking bought them. They're going to be gone. So, like, grab onto these with your dear life because you're going to be buck-ass naked in a minute.
That was, like, the same spell as when, like, Doctor Strange just somehow merged Everyone Forgets Peter Parker. Also, all the other Spider-Man movies go back to their movies.
All of them, and, like, there's, like, weird time crap where, like, each villain comes immediately before they died, but then, like, Peter is old.
I don't understand any of that.
It's all nonsense. And he's also like, anyone who ever knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man, but it doesn't bring in Mary Jane. It doesn't bring in Gwen before her death. It doesn't bring in either of the Harry Osborns that knew.
You
know who it does bring?
Harry like it was an adjective. Those fucking Harry Osborns.
Either of those, like, scraggly Osborns that knew.
Those unshaven Osborns.
You know who it does bring? Electro, who... I can't confirm, but I am 99.9% certain had no idea that Peter Parker and Spider-Man were the same person. But they needed another villain, and Jamie Foxx, like, this is their chance to do Electro.
They brought back fucking
we need to get all the main villains.
So, Okay, this I was able to comic book hand wave, but I hated it. This is all you're waiting for. You were like, I hate this movie. And I was like, oh, I liked it. And then you're like, just fight with me. And I was like, no. And then you're like, okay, but really, let's just have at it. I was like, okay, whatever. I said I liked watching Spider-Man do things.
Well, once you got to talk about how you liked all the 3 Spider-Man hugging, you got to that post-nut clarity again, and here we are.
Fuck it. So, I did not understand one single way. I liked the idea of Peter wanting to save them instead of sending them through their deaths. That was good.
Mm-hmm.
I wished Alex Molina would...
Alfred.
What did I say? Alfred? I wish Alex Molina would have...
No, Alfred.
Like the Batman character. I said Alex and I was like, this isn't right, but I'm just gonna... Fuck it, we're in here. When Dr. Man shows up, not the Goblin Man, but the Octopus Man shows up, I like when he's like good and he's like, I'm gonna team up with you. I wish there was more of that. I understand why there's not, because it's a Spider-Man movie, and it's not about that.
Well, he gets electrocuted, and then he just, like, yeets out of the movie for a little while until he shows back up to be like, ooh, it's a twist. I'm good.
Okay, no one in the history of the world, fucking Caesar, saw past the fact that Alfred Molina was not a bad guy at the end. Did you? Were you like, oh my god, he's bad again?
Oh, no, I did. No, I was gonna, because we're on Dr. Octopus, one of the many things that really pissed me off in this movie is, by the way, you can say your thing, but I have not even finished my point. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, you're right.
No, I mean, I'm wrong because I tangented like we do. But, okay, I'm going to just get into it. I don't understand any of this, like, they were all pulled from their world right before they died. But then, like you said, Toby is older, and he's like, he says he's lived a long life. So he was brought back not at the same time, which I guess, whatever.
And I mean, technically, none of these could have been brought back at the same time because, you know...
They can pull from wherever.
Osborn and Octavius are like 2 years apart, I think he says.
Yeah, and so Osborn was already dead at the time. It makes sense, but I couldn't wrap my brain around it when they were looking for Peter, and they're like, this isn't Peter, it's Andrew Garfield. And then, like, you heard the laugh track and the cheering, and then they're like, oh, what about this one? And then you hear the laugh track and then the cheering. Someone in my theater did go, it's Toby! And I was like, damn you, Adam Driver. But I didn't like how they were just like, they weren't coming from their universe. They were just coming from Tom Holland's universe.
Because they were already pulled in. That was what they were saying.
No, I know, but it was just like a weird, I understand it even logically, but it was just a weird thing where Doctor Strange's little portal meant a different universe. Not always, of course, I know that. But like, it was just kind of used in that way for so long. And then they bring Toby and Andrew in and they're just like, yeah, we've been in this universe for like days. But like, okay, but didn't you see stuff happening? Like, things were happening. A bridge collapsed. Why wouldn't you go to the bridge?
That's true. When they all teleport back...
And turn into ghosts?
Like, at what point was Osborn taken? Is he, like, does he come back and it's, like, immediately before he was about to be impaled by that glider? Because it seems like they were all taken, like, seconds before their death. Why was Venom there? He doesn't even know who Peter Parker is because he's from a completely alternate universe that doesn't have one. Like, it doesn't care, and it's, like, fine, but it's also just, like, if you're gonna write stupid fucking rules and explain, it's like the Loki thing. Like, if you're gonna explain your bullshit so much and get everything to where you want it to be and everything, like, write better explanations. If all you want to do is have 1 million Spider-Men show up, then just have 1 million Spider-Men show up. Just have Peter go to Strange and trip over a book and read a spell and, oh no, Spider-Men are everywhere.
It's because... like, Tom Hardy was in it because they wanted you to forget that Tom Hardy was a different series than Topher Grace.
It's so stupid. It's because that's how they want to do Venom, then bring Venom in there, and then it's connected to what it's stupid. Why wouldn't the Venom symbiote, like, why would he leave a bit of the symbiote behind? Did Sandman leave some of his sand behind? Like, the symbiote, apparently, like, any piece of it knows whatever the symbiote knows, and if the symbiote knows shit like Brock does, then that would all teleport. He can't leave a piece behind. It's fucking stupid, and it's whatever, and like, in Spider-Verse, like, there's an explanation. They were building a collider specifically to cross over into different realities because it's not about the money, Spider-Man. It's about finding my family. Kingpin just wants to find his family.
Just like Flint Marko.
I mean, that one has a clear reason for why other Spider-Men show up. Is it all like a little hand-wavy? Sure, but it wants to do the fun stuff, and it explains just enough to do the fun stuff, and
I'm fine with spell
exactly
backfire.
Enough sense.
Monkey's paw spell. I'm fine with that. It's really
But
problematic.
the rules of the spell don't make sense.
It's really problematic because they try to explain it.
If they just said, like, I was, in order to erase everyone's memory, technically, like, in this, we know that it should have, it should have been a time thing. I know he lost the time stone. It should have been a time spell. Because that way, we know, based on Loki, that the only thing that that alternate realities are different timelines. And so he just says, like, these are all alternate timelines where something happens, and each one came from a different timeline, and, from their point in time where whatever. Or maybe he says, like, I don't want, maybe the whole thing is, like, Quentin Beck died, and because he died, like, all this happened. What if he just said, like, I want to save Quentin? Can we go back in time and not kill Quentin? Like, especially because outside of entering kill mode in Endgame, this Peter Parker doesn't kill. Like, he's never had a like, Vulture goes to jail.
This Peter Parker doesn't kill outside of entering kill mode.
But I mean, like, again, like, the whole thing in this is he has to learn
mode.
he has to learn not to kill, which is fucking stupid. But, like, in this, like, what if the spell was, Quentin died, and that's not good. I couldn't save him. I wish I could save him. And all of this happened because of that. Like, what if I went back to that moment and saved that? And instead, the spell went wrong, and it's like, now all the villains that have ever died, like, they're getting pulled in here the moments before their death. And then you can bring in any of these, and you don't have to do the wibbly-wobbly remembering bullshit. But it's because it also wants to do the excuse of everybody forgets Peter Parker so that we can undo the repercussions of the last movie that we don't actually want to deal with. And so that he can have his stupid sacrifice. It was fun. I got to see Kraven the Hunter and the Rhino. They were just like weird silhouettes, but it was neat. There was a lion's roar when you saw Kraven.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. I hated that.
I did too. I mean, it's fun to see the things and just be like, ooh, because the first time through I saw Rhino, he's very hard to miss. The second time through, I was trying to see if I could spot anyone else, and they all are so quick and so hard to see.
I figured there was
the
something
only one
there,
I noticed was
like, what am I
Kraven.
missing? But I really hated that because it's just like dumb and it doesn't matter.
What, honestly, like, at this point, if you just want to get Spider-Man to be the Spider-Man from the comics so that you can undo all the crap and garbage you've thrown on him for the other two movies, just break the multiverse in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Doctor Strange is supposed to happen first. Maybe break the multiverse in Doctor Strange's movie. I know, like, this came out first now, but it was originally supposed to be Strange. I saw some concept art. Apparently, America Chavez was supposed to show up in this movie, and that's how the other Spider-Men show up, is she opens portals. I don't know how much of the movie changes, but apparently Ned getting the sling ring, which I think is fucking dumb as shit, is just because it's to replace America not being in this movie, based on concept art. So I don't know any facts about this. I've just seen artwork of her opening her portals. But, like, at that point, like, just
fucking rip it open.
Fold the multiverse in on... That's what I'm saying, is, like, just, like, fold the multiverse in on itself and then just be like, everything's happening. And then from there on, you can do whatever you want with the next movie. And you only have to, like, consistently just be like, it's a comic book universe, so whatever we do has to continue. But, like, from there, we don't have to worry about, like, how do we explain having Kraven the Hunter show up? It's a comic book universe. We've folded realities in and everything's zany now so that we can finally have fucking fun in our fun movies for children that aren't for children.
Him closing the multiverse stuff at the end, I was just like, why even bother opening? Like, why make it crack? Like, if you're going to make it crack, just commit and just be like, this is it. This is, like, the multiverse is here. Especially since we know it's coming. Isn't it more exciting to end your movie? I mean, I guess it's because you need to have Tom go to... I mean, it is a big thing to say, like, the multiverse is here, but I don't know. It just felt like a waste of my time to watch, like, 400 animators animate these things for, like, 5 minutes. And then it didn't matter anymore. Everybody wanted to see Toby. How cool would it have been if fucking Spider-Verse Miles was there?
I was sitting through the whole movie going, the only way that this could actually hit me the way that it's hitting everybody else is if it goes fucking bonkers and they just throw in either an animated Spider-Man, they throw in Miles, or, Miles comes through and then they just make a Miles.
Yeah.
Like, what if they killed Holland in this movie and then they just said, here's Miles now, and Miles is the new MCU Spider-Man, and they never do. Like, it's fine. Like, I get it. It's too much, but it's also just like, at
just
this
commit.
point, like,
it wasn't too much into the Spider-Verse. Like, people can handle that.
The bombast is all that this movie has. And I will agree that, like, watching the other Spider-Man is fun. Seeing the other villains again is fun. A lot of the action beats are fun. But it just doesn't work for me. And part of it is because it doesn't commit enough. It thinks it's doing its own thing still. Like, it's still trying to tell its stupid story about Tom Holland learning that killing is bad. And with great power comes great responsibility, which he learns from Aunt May this time. Oh my gosh, what a twist. He learns from Aunt May instead of Ben. Oh, whoa. But he also already knew that lesson from the other two movies. The last two movies were also about that lesson.
So I will say, I know we talked about this with Homecoming. I think when we saw it, not for the show. But I remember asking you if it bugged you that they didn't say that, and you vehemently were against them saying it.
I wasn't against it. I like that they don't say
it. Doesn't need to
I
be
think it's
said.
fine.
And I was on the other end where I said, I don't know, that's kind of like a Spider-Man thing. Like, I don't care for origin stuff, but for whatever reason, it felt like that's what you needed to do. And here it feels so hollow. And it is so unnecessary. And they do that a little bit, and with the other Spider-Man, and like Norman does is like, I'm somewhat of a scientist myself.
The power of the sun in the palm of your hand.
And they say their lines, and like, there is a lot. As much as I said all I wanted was to see 3 Spider-Men on the screen, there's a lot of it. There's a lot of good stuff. A lot of like their pally stuff really bugged me. And again, I think that goes back to they all felt very similarly written when they were kind of doing that. And it was something that was like, that's what I was referring to when I said, I know this needs to be here. I just don't care. And like, that's what I want them to, like, what else do the 3 Spider-Men do on the screen if not that? But for whatever reason, I like got what I wanted and was like, I'm sorry, I'll be good. Like, it just, none of it really landed. There was a lot of, the only one I can think of right now is just like at the end after Toby gets stabbed and like Tom says bye to him and then Andrew Garfield's like, you're in a lot of pain, right? And then the theater laughs. And there's more of that.
Well, that's another thing is like, it's not earned. I don't think May's death is earned, but I don't think it would have been earned if Toby died. But also like Toby stopping him from killing and then also getting stabbed, that could have been a moment that meant something, but instead it's just like, it's fine. He's like, I've been stabbed before, and he just like falls over, and it's like, what's even the point? Why even stab him? It doesn't matter at this point. Immediately after that, they cure Norman. It's not like that's the moment that Peter really has to like wrestle with the idea of like, why save this guy? It just wants to have that shock of the second where you
I know Tom has the bloodlust.
Toby, I love him.
At this point, but like when Toby stops him, Tom essentially tries to kill Toby.
I think he's more just like trying to push past him.
But like,
push against. I mean, I see what you're saying, but I think it's more of just like he's still pushing and Toby's pushing back, but he's not like pushing to push it into.
But that's the only place he can
Toby's
go.
Just putting himself in the way. I mean, I see what you're saying. I agree, but I don't think he's like, I'm so bloodthirsty that I'll go through you if I gotta. It's mostly just like,
but he has to.
Like, you can try and stop me, but I'm gonna keep going. I don't know. I just think like a Peter that has like thinks he has to kill is stupid. I remember seeing when this movie came out, after I saw it, I finally went on the tweeter and I saw so many people showing like screen caps of the shot of him like staring at the bugle screen with all the neon lights in the rain, and he's crying right after May died, and they're like, this scene goes so hard. Oh, the emotion. I'm like, there's nothing to it. There's nothing there.
Yeah, I was really distant there.
May's not a character. Her death serves no purpose because it's teaching him the same lesson that has been taught over 3 movies.
5, because it's the same lesson he's taught in Raimi and Amazing.
True, but he learns it in Endgame, he learns it in Far From Home, he learns it in Homecoming, he already knows it, he mentions it in Civil War. I assume his Uncle Ben died in a similar manner. He never explicitly says what happened to Ben, but like I would assume. But this one goes like, oh, it's the old switcheroo. It's the same thing as like Star Trek Into Darkness Into Darkness, when they're like, oh, it's like the Wrath of Khan, but this time Kirk dies and Spock saves him. And it's like, fuck off. Just
show me
off.
3 Spider-Men.
Like, stop doing the twisty bullshit. Like, I know it's like a stupid, like, inverted, like, fan service thing, but it's fucking stupid. It's irritating every single time any movie has ever done it. Like, in the end, May serving the Ben role is fine. Mm-hmm. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. The problem is it serves no purpose. It has no greater meaning. It's just there to be the thing you point at. It's the exact same as having all 3 Spider-Men hug. It's just there to be the thing you point at and go, oh, I get it. I know the thing. And this time it's like, I get it. I know the thing. And this time it's different. And I'm the one who gets it. I get that it's different. I get what it's doing and I get how it's different. I double get it.
Speaking of, and it completely changed gears here. I am very, very, very surprised. I wrote one thing down figuratively that I was like, this will be in the movie. And that is the 3 Spider-Men pointing at each other meme. Or the 2 Spider-Men, I guess. But I've seen it with 3. I am 100% surprised that was not here.
I thought that was going to be a post-credit.
I thought
either that,
since it didn't happen in the movie, and then the end credits are all drawn and there's like all the Spider-Man like walking in the MC Escher stuff. I was like, they're going to put it here. Mm-hmm. No, you didn't.
When I was waiting for the end credits thing, I was thinking the end credits stinger is going to either be seeing the other 2 Spider-Men return to their universe, which I didn't think was going to happen, all 3 Spider-Men pointing at each other, like the meme, or that was going to be Miles showing up. And like, that was how they were going to have the fun bit of having an animated character show up in the MCU without having to deal with worrying about how does he work and everything. It's just like, he shows up, but he never participates, and he's just like, swings in and immediately swings out.
No, he should have just been like...
And it's just like...
listening to his music. Just like an animated thing of him, like in live action, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit style. He's just listening to... You just listen to him, listen to like 30 seconds. Or like, you know, he like walks through the portal listening to music, and he's just like walking down the street, and then he just walks back through another portal. Just, hey man, right, fucking give me the check.
I especially thought he was going to show up. I even started to actually legitimately think he was going to show up soon when Electro has this little thing where he's like, I thought you were black.
There no black Superman?
He's like, there's got to be a black Spider-Man somewhere. And I was thinking like, that was them being like, that's
we acknowledge.
But I thought that was their setup. I thought it was like, that's the setup, and the payoff is going to be like a fun little like end credits bit with Miles. Either a live action Miles finally showing up, or like an animated Miles swinging into the universe and then swinging.
Instead, we get Tom Hardy, which doesn't make any fucking sense.
Apparently at the end of, I heard about this, apparently at the end of Let There Be Carnage, he like disappears and shows up in the MCU for their end credits bit. But like, whatever.
But the whole spell brought everybody who knew who Spider-Man was.
Also, his whole thing being like, I'm going to talk literally about all the dumb things in this universe. There's a big green guy and he's angry. Oh, it's so silly and stupid. It's like, dude, you ate a live lobster in your movie. You sat in a lobster tank and you bit the head off of a lobster. You don't get to talk about what's too silly. And his whole thing is like, tell me about the big alien that loves rocks. Aliens don't love rocks, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. There's a couple like cute lines of like people, you know, it's the stuff you always have to do. And everyone says like, oh my gosh, if they ever had all the Spider-Men show up, the other two Spider-Man would be so freaked out by Tobey Maguire shooting webbing straight from his wrists. And so you have to have an acknowledgement to that. But like, it's a fun little bit.
That was a fine bit.
Like, those things are fun. I get it. But there's also just like sometimes that wink and nudge stuff is just like too much for me. And it's just like, ugh. And the Venom thing was too much for me. It was like...
I did like how, like, the post-credit scene was just a trailer for like, yeah. They didn't try to do, like, their own thing. They're just like, here's a trailer. Watch the next movie, you fucking idiots.
When I walked out of the movie, I was like, I can't wait for Seth's only... I thought you were going to hate this, and I was like, I can't wait for Seth's only put up to be that he got to see Shumagorath.
Here's the thing. I don't think that's going to be a good movie.
I don't think it is either. I think it's going to be another one of these, but weirder. Or, like, worse. I think it's not going to be, like, the interesting folding stuff. It's just going to be, like, putting Benedict Cumberbatch in different wigs and being like, I'm the Doctor Strange of the universe where I don't know, I finally wear the fucking yellow gloves again.
I was very excited for Multiverse of Madness, and that trailer did not look fun and exciting. It was neat to see Shumagorath.
I think it looks, I guess I agree with you, it doesn't really look fun or exciting, but I think it looks like about as interesting as any Marvel trailer does, where I'm just like, looks like it could be like fun things that I'm probably not going to care about. I'm, again, much like this movie in its opening, where I was like, I'm interested in how you deal with the fallout of your last fucking movie, even though I know you don't want to deal with the fallout. It's similar where I'm like, I'm interested in the fallout of WandaVision, even though I know you don't care about the fallout to WandaVision. You just want her to show up in this movie and now she's a witch using magic. And WandaVision was just putting her in that position.
Just want a bunch of universe hopping, I guess, in Multiverse of Madness with like a weird overlay of Shumagorath. And I don't think that's what I'm going to get. I think I'm going to get just a run-of-the-mill MCU movie.
That has like an evil Doctor
Strange.
That
has the evil Doctor Strange from What If in it.
Which, if that is the Doctor Strange from What If, it doesn't make any sense. Because he's good by the end of that.
Well, they get him when he's in the middle of being bad.
Yeah, at the end when they're done fighting him, they send him back to his universe, and that's when the Watcher shows up. Oh my god, that's what they're going to do. That's the end credits bit.
What comes after Eternal? No, the Marvels, right? What's after?
I think the next show is Ms. Marvel. The next show or the next movie?
Whatever they would... I guess they don't really mix the shows and the movies as much as I'd like. So yeah,
as of right now, the shows are the extension of the movies, but as of yet, the movies have not been the extension. Like,
but it's not like the movies.
Strange will be the first.
But it's not like the movies is at the end of Doctor Strange. They're going to have a post-credit scene about Ms. Marvel.
Oh, the next show? They could. I think there's no.
That's what I mean. Like, so I feel.
But I think we could. There's nothing.
I guess it was more just like. I don't know what we're even talking about this for.
I'm just saying, I think the stupid end credits, if that is the Doctor Strange from What If, maybe it is taken before he does his stupid team up in What If, and so the end bit is him going back to his little bubble universe where he's sitting there being like, oh, I wish Christine was alive.
Is that a weird thing?
Now we get to watch it in live action.
See, I feel like that's a weird thing.
I think it is too. I was mostly kidding when I said that's the bit, because I don't think they're going to do it. Because
no, but there's a.
weird.
I understand that What If is canon for as much as that means in the MCU right now with the multiverse. But like, I have a weird disconnect with Evil Doctor Strange from What If and Evil Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, where it's like those aren't the same. Like in the same way that Cartoon Miles from Into the Spider-Verse, if he was in this movie, if he was played by a live action thing, I'd be like, that's not the same character. Like, it's a weird thing that I have right now where I'm just like, I can hand wave What If and be like, this is just how the Watcher told me these stories. And so I understand that they are live action people. But it was just like, that is their universe. Their universe is just cartoon universe. Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about this movie?
I saw a lot of people saying like Norman Osborn was the best villain of home movies, and I don't think that's true. Like, he's fine. He does what he needs to do to service this movie. I think he and Alfred Molina are giving it their all. Alfred Molina is very much a stage actor, and it shows, but I think he's fun. I think Willem Dafoe is doing a great job. I think he's fun. I think he's a fun goblin in this, like at the fight with him and Peter at the building when Peter's doing a bunch of web attacks from the Spider-Man game where the triangle button is appearing over Goblin's head is fun. But like, he's not like a big, like, he doesn't have any impact really as a goblin to this Peter. Like, they established that Osborn doesn't exist in this universe.
I feel like Jamie Foxx,
but it's just like,
is the villain.
I don't think they're really, like, I guess Jamie Foxx is the one that kind of like sets everything off. And I guess you're right in that, like, in the end, he's the most adversarial throughout the whole thing, sort of. But like, mostly, like, it is Willem Dafoe. It's just the problem is, like, Willem Dafoe has like the big bit where he kills May, and then he's not in the movie, and then he shows up at the end for the big battle so that Peter can have his moment where he learns that killing maybe is a bad. And like, he's not really a thing. Like, he doesn't really, his whole thing is just like, I'm the Goblin, I'm gonna fuck with people. And it's fine, but it's like the same kind of like Joker thing where everybody's like, oh, the Joker's so cool because he's so, you never know what he's gonna do. He's just like chaotic. And that's fine, but in the end, it's not necessarily compelling. It's just like, he's gonna fuck with anyone. He doesn't even care that it's Peter Parker. Yeah. If he showed up in fucking Moon Knight's show and he was just like, I'm Moon Knight, and he'd be like, all right, where's your girlfriend? I'm gonna fucking stab her. Like, I don't care. I just want to.
Was Moon Knight.
It's just like, I'm just gonna like fucking, I just want to piss people off. I don't care who it is. If I'm gonna kill someone and they're gonna fight me and they're gonna have powers so that I can properly fight back and just have the time of my life and like turn someone who wants to do good things and make them do an evil thing like kill me, I'm gonna fucking go for it. I don't give a shit. And like, that's fine, but there's nothing to it beyond that.
I don't say this a lot, but I liked his movie costume.
I do too.
When he blows up and he's like, he has it's like a good mix of comic booky and like, well, we can't just give him tights or his little like tunic. But they give him the hood. They give him like, he still has his like metal goblin arms.
Although, but at the end of the movie, his goblin armor is like bulkier. He's got like all these attachments that I don't know where he got them. Same thing with Jamie Foxx shows up and he's like, look, I got all this extra crap on me. And I'm like, whatever, that's fine. I don't really understand any villain's motivations. The Lizard is just like, I'm going to hang out in the van. And then once everybody riots, he's like, yeah, fucking riot!
Well, he was like, nothing ever goes well.
Yeah, I know, but he's also just like, I'm just going to sit here. And then once everything goes haywire, he's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, same thing with like Sandman. Sandman is just like, I'm going to fucking team up with Elektra. I guess we're buddies now. Watch me make an electric sandstorm.
Alfred Molina is good. And I feel like he has a motivation. I mean, he doesn't have a motivation, but he has like a clear concept of who he is and what he wants. Sandman? When Sandman is just like, I just want to see my family. And then later in the movie, Peter, I don't know which one of the Peters is like, why are you fighting us? And he's like, don't you want to like be healed? And he's like, I don't care. And I was like, what? I get we gotta make him.
Did you read the script?
Like, I get we gotta make you fight, but what? Why would you so unabashedly just be like, stop thinking about it, there's 3 Spider-Men on the screen? But I will say, speaking of Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin costume here, fucking Flint Marko translates so well to the movie universe. Probably because he's just a dude wearing a shirt. Just put him in a striped shirt and khakis, or jeans or whatever, but like, I don't know. That is like Flint Marko to me. It's good. Except he's made of sand for the entire movie.
Well, the thing with him and the Lizard is that those actors were not on set. They recorded lines, but they weren't on set. It's very, very clear. When he turns back to human, it is, I believe, when he turns into sand from the 3rd Spider-Man movie. Just like digitally touched up.
Really?
Yeah.
I figured there was something in that where it's like, why is Flint always sand?
I thought it was weird that he was always sand because that's not how he worked in his movie. And then at the end, I was like, I remember this bit when he's like looking at his hand, but they're like playing it in reverse. Same thing. I watched Amazing Spider-Man recently, and the bit with the lizard when he's like laying there, it's cut straight out of that movie. It's the same bit. And I looked it up, and it turns out like they recorded lines, but they couldn't be on set. So they were they were conveniently both characters that could be easily digitally recreated without having the actors there.
When Kurt Connor turns back from the lizard man and he makes his weird face, it was funny.
He has like a weird shadow on his eye that looks like he's wearing clown makeup.
I will say, though, how nice is it that they all lucked out that none of them turned into, like, crazy slobs?
What do you mean?
Like, in the same way that I know people talked about, like, Boyhood, where it's like, man, isn't Linklater lucky that, like, they just, like, grew into, like, normal people? Like, you could still put Toby in front of a camera and be like, look, it's Toby, instead of, like, look at Toby, and, like, we'll just not acknowledge that he really let himself go.
He does look very tired.
He does look very old and very tired. And Ben fucking Schwartz look-alike, or Andrew Garfield, looks weird.
I don't have a problem with him.
He looks, and
I think
it's probably because
fine.
I haven't watched the movie in a long time and whatever.
He's got a lot of hair.
He looks different to me. Toby looks different, but I guess, like, I don't know, I have a better understanding of Tobey Maguire, and I've always thought that Andrew Garfield just looks like Ben Schwartz, but it's something where I'm just like, there's something off. And he has a little bit of, like, facial hair.
I didn't like when they decide to call each other Peter 1, Peter 2, and Peter 3. I think that's stupid. I think it's a stupid little bit. I think it's annoying that Holland is Peter 1. I get why, but it's also just like, at that point, that's your chance for a cute meta joke that I will let slide. Especially since they did that whole thing where Toby tells Andrew, he's like, you're amazing. Say it back to me. Say I'm amazing.
I can't believe they didn't do, I'm the Amazing Spider-Man.
And again, like, at that point, when you're giving all of them names, why not have him be Amazing Spider-Man?
Spectacular.
Do the adjectives. That's like a big Spider-Man thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or just like, I don't know, give him like some other, like, something. I can't think of anything at the moment because, like, honestly, he's the only one that had an adjective. But, like, why not do that? Why not give him the Amazing Spider-Man? Especially because when they go like Peter 1, Peter 2, and then Andrew throws his hands up in the air and goes Peter 3, because the entire movie is like, I'm the joke Spider-Man. I get it. You guys didn't like my fucking movies. And it's annoying because that's his entire, like, it's kind of like interesting. And that's another way that I feel like he's different from the other two. But like his whole bit in the movie is like a constant thing of like, I know you guys like Andrew Garfield. Like, he's a likable actor. He played a fun Spider-Man that people liked, but they didn't like his movies. So the whole thing is like a constant meta joke of him just being like, I get it. I'm the Spider-Man you guys don't like. Look at how I'm not sure of myself and how I talk bad about myself and I make a bunch of stupid little things about how I'm awkward and weird because you guys don't fucking like me. I'm Peter 3 because of course I'm the third one because I'm the lowest ranked between all of you. It's irritating. Another thing I don't like how all of these movies, much like you said about Iron Man, each movie needs to give Peter a new costume. This one gives him two. One of them is the other costume, Inside Out. Doesn't make any fucking sense. Doesn't make any fucking sense, and he wears it for one scene. And it's just so that they can put that on all the advertising stuff. Look, he's got a black suit, but it's just his other suit inside out, and it makes no sense because the eyes are fine, and it's still got a spider symbol on the inside. Why would it have any of that shit on the inside? It's stupid. It's the dumbest thing, but it's just so that they can put him in a new costume for the movie. And then, when I cut you off before about Alfred Molina, they do that thing where the nanotechnology crap gets on his tentacles, and it looks like he pulls it off. And he's like putting it on his tentacles and it's turning red. And he's like, look at this nanotechnology. How cool. And I was like, are you doing this? But then it turns out like Peter's like, it's pairing with another device. And then Peter can control it. And I think Peter being able to control the tentacles is like a fun little thing, I guess. But it's stupid. The nanotech is stupid. The fact that he has the suit with the big hole in the chest is stupid. And then at the end, when he gives it back and he's like, here, I'm going to put it on your suit so that you have another suit so we can sell a third action figure for this movie. Woo! Fucking dumb. And that suit looks stupid. The final suit at the end of the movie looks great because it looks like a comic book suit. And everyone's like, this is the best suit, but you don't get a very good clear look at it. And I was trying to tell on the back, but it looks like no one wants to do the big, fat, stupid spider on this back. They all want to make like a proper looking spider. Give him the big, stupid, cartoony, fat spider on his back.
With his like square limbs?
Yeah, I love it. I love that spider. And I will admit, I hated it as a kid when I saw the Raimi movies and they gave him like a weird actual like spider that was just a bigger version of the spider on his chest on his back. I was like, that's so cool. It's so cool because I'm a grown man now. I'm a teenager and I think that's cool. Now I'm just like, give him the fucking dumb ass fat spider on his back. It looks way better. And I can't tell for certain, but there were like 2 times you could kind of see his back and it looked like the Raimi sort of spider on his back.
Here's a question to our resident Spider-Man fan. Is there a Spider-Man Public Enemy comic?
What do you mean?
Isn't there a Public Enemy who has a Public Enemy comic?
There's a Bruce Wayne Public Enemy.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Like,
I know there's a comic series with a subtitle Public Enemy.
There's a bunch, but I don't think Spider-Man has one. Spider-Man.
I didn't know if they took some stuff off of that or off of something like that for the beginning. Mainly because I was so bothered by the beginning.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, and not that I could Google. But I do know there is something that has like a something Public Enemy.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. Captain America, maybe? But anyways, I think I'm done.
So, Seth, give me 2 put-ups and a put-down.
My first put-up is going to be, I thought the bridge fight was good between Tom and Alfred. You know me, it was in the day. That was cool.
Speaking of in the day, how about the whole final act takes place at night?
With lightning and
then as soon as it's like, time for the spell, I'm going to make all your friends forget you, but in order for this moment to have proper, hopeful impact, we're going to make it daylight.
It wasn't even there. It was when he was fighting Willem Dafoe.
Oh, I think you're right.
Yeah, it's like dawn when he's fighting Willem Dafoe. But yeah, I actually didn't mind. I always complain about darkness. You always complain it's my TV. Maybe the theater was better.
I mean, I don't like darkness either. I just
put up.
You always say you can't see stuff.
I thought this was. I could see what was happening on screen, but I thought the storyboard of how the fight flowed at the very end when they're on the Statue of Liberty was kind of like, who knows where anybody is. But anyways, first put up, I liked the Alfred Molina Tom Holland fight. My second put up, I'll say the finale fight. I mean, it was fun to see 3 Spider-Men. They do the superhero shot where they all 3 land. Well, one, they all jump off the building and then flip through the air. And I was kind of not having that. But then they all landed and I was like, you need to have the superhero shot here. And I'm fine with that. But I mean, there was some good action stuff here. I didn't care for all the stuff about I don't know how to work as a team and I'm Spider-Man 1 and 2 and 3 and stuff like that. And I didn't like how they all had to take off their masks so that we knew who was talking. But I thought the fight was fun. It was neat to see them throw all the cures around, I guess. My put down is going to be, I'm going to just say the first half hour or so until all the public identity stuff. 1, like we said, it doesn't matter. 2, I really thought it was kind of annoying and it didn't really make sense to me. Tony Stark revealed himself earlier in the world and nobody really, people cared, but people know Tony Stark and know where he lives. It's bad people shot at his mansion, but it's not like he had just riffraff coming off the street like Peter did. And Peter doesn't even have a really public identity. It's not like he's a high school athlete that would be in the papers. And I guess he was probably in the papers for science stuff, but I'm just going to say, part of that is just me knowing what I went to the theater for and just show me that. Just start the movie off with the fucking Doctor Strange portal and here we go.
My first put up is going to be, I like when Andrew Garfield catches MJ. I think that's a good moment. It works for exactly the same reason the rest of this movie doesn't work, which is it's purely from a meta standpoint. Like I said, it does set itself up, but it only really works if that moment means anything to you outside of this movie, even if it's just from the comics and knowing that Peter failed to catch, even if it's not this Peter, knowing that there is a Peter, Peter has failed to catch someone before, and this is a Peter that has failed. But it also, it has a hard cut that is really bad right after. It doesn't really give it enough time, and it just, immediately cuts to something else. My second put-up is going to be, I kind of want to say the opening bit, but I don't really like it that much. I just think, I was engaged because it was, kind of, starting to address the stuff that I thought was interesting. But then it, immediately, stops caring. It just wants to get it out of the way so that it can do the movie it's here to do. So, my second put-up is going to be, you talked about that hero shot with the 3 Spider-Man. I actually do like when they run out of the scaffolding. They kind of cheer each other on and they run out of the scaffolding and they jump out and all sling around, and there's a part where one of the Spider-Men attaches a web to the other 2 and spins them around, and it doesn't make any sense, but it's goofy comic book crap where I was like, if that's the entire movie, I'm here for it. Like, as much as I hate the final acts of all these movies and the big CGI nutfest, like, this is the kind of CGI nutfest where it's like, this is fun. Like, watching 3 Spider-Men all do Spider-Man stuff with 5 villains. I guess at that point there's only 4. No, there's only 3 around. Like, that's fun. It'd be fun to get like a Sinister Six movie with like a billion villains, and like all that stuff is fun. It's just everything around this movie sucks and I don't like it. It's just, I don't know. My put down is the story this movie thinks it's telling.
Yes.
I think all the logic of the spell is stupid. I think the way that Peter screwed it up by being an obnoxious little shit is stupid. I think the fight with Strange sucks. I hate the Mirrorverse. But like the story it's trying to tell of like, this is the origin of how we get to Spider-Man being the Spider-Man that most people would recognize out of a comic book.
Only because they screwed up by making the first 2 movies.
Yeah, is unnecessary. Like, do I prefer or even really care for the Spider-Man of the MCU? No, but it's doing something. And like in the first movie, I was like,
you made your bed, just fucking sleep in it.
Like you did the tech suit. I understand why it's here. It's not that intrusive. It's fine. It's the second movie that doubled down on the tech shit and the Tony Stark crap and really just like mucked it all up to the point where like, you know, he's wearing a nanotech suit and all this. And it's just like you said, you made your fucking bed. Now you got to sleep in it. And instead, I sit through this movie that does a lot of fun stuff that I do like, but I gotta sit through all of this shit just to get into an explanation where at the end it goes, and it was all worth it because this was our planned home. Like, I saw people online saying like, do you think they planned this? Do you think this was their plan from the start? And the answer is no. Of course it wasn't their fucking plan.
You can't plan.
If they wanted to do a Spider-Man that that sewed his own stupid suit on a sewing machine, they would have done that from the fucking start, but they didn't. They didn't do that because that's not what they wanted to do. But then enough people complained about shit, or someone down the line just said, let's do something. I don't know. Part of the problem with the MCU is that it went too big too fast. It's not even just a Spider-Man thing. That's just an MCU thing. They went big far too fast because they started so small. But like, it's gross, and like I said, like it just leaves me with an icky feeling. I don't like it. And so that's my big put down, is just the movie has a lot of stuff that's fun. I think it has more stuff in it that's fun than what isn't. But I think what isn't fun is so not fun that it drags the whole thing down for me.
So I'm going to disagree with you here and say I hated it in Doctor Strange, but I actually didn't mind the Mirror World fight. I don't know if I was just in the right
I think it's
headspace,
better here.
but I thought it was exciting. I thought they did interesting things. I mean, there's part of me, I was going to say it, I'm glad I didn't because you would have made fun of me. Part of me is like, I kind of just want that I want like a dark version of that for Multiverse of Madness, where it's just like, anything can happen. Like, it's just weird, anything can happen. There's just like...
I guess it doesn't feel like anything can happen. It's just like, it's weird kaleidoscope crap. I hated when Peter's just like, oh, it's math. I love math. Pi, carry the 4. And he's just shooting wet. Fuck that. That's
You know what
stupid.
I like?
I hated that.
Being married to a math teacher, I liked how everyone in the theater laughs at every little bit of in-joke or whatever.
And your wife laughed at
No,
that?
she didn't go. But nobody cares about the math jokes. Dead silent. You see a glimpse of a silhouette, and the whole theater's just like, oh my god, it's Tobey Maguire. Oh my god, I've got to go see Tobey Maguire. Oh my god, they said the Amazing Spider-Man. Oh, they're all Spider-Man number 3. But then they make a math joke, and everyone's sitting there and it's crickets. People don't know what they want.
Yeah, I hated that mirror stuff. I hate the sling ring already. I hate that. I hate that Ned gets the sling ring, but I already hated the sling ring in the first place. Just let Doctor Strange do fucking magic. Why does he need a fucking ring for it? Anyway, where did you put this in your total ranking of every Marvel movie ever?
Let's see. I'm going to throw this blindly into... I like it more than What If. I like it less than Hawkeye. Fuck it. This is fun enough. So that's at number 9.
I also just hate the title. I hate all the home titles. Homecoming was fine, but just give me an adjective Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, but what if you make
Why
4?
do we need all this? Then you just keep making adjectives. Amazing, sensational.
You can't make Amazing Spider-Man.
Friendly neighborhood. Whatever. Spectacular.
Superior.
I put this just below the middle at number 18, below Civil War, above Infinity War. And I was having a lot of trouble figuring out where to put it because this is such a weird movie where like I like a lot of things in it, but I hate the movie overall. And in the end, I put it above Infinity War, Age of Ultron, and way above Endgame because Endgame's like towards the bottom at 25. But because I think I like the stuff that this does more than what it does in those other things. Like the spectacle is more fun there than it is in like Infinity War or anything. But I put it below Civil War because The Spider-Man stuff in that is more fun than the Spider-Man spectacle in this. Just getting to see a taste of Spider-Man and using his powers in a fun, like, introductory sort of way, and it's just, like, kind of simple and clean, is better than this, like, clusterfuck mess that has, like, a couple moments where it's like, I can't believe they did it. Those madmen.
So what are you going to see what's the next movie you're going to see in the theaters, Andrew? What's going to bring your butt into a dark room with strangers? I guess, what did you see? What was your trailers?
So my trailers were The Batman, Ambu LA Ants.
No.
That trailer was awful. It had some of the worst, like, camera work I'd ever seen. Death on the Nile.
No.
Or whatever. Uncharted.
No.
Sonic 2.
No. I didn't see any of those.
Moonfall.
No.
I think those were the only ones that I had.
I had The Batman. I had Cyrano.
I didn't even know they were making it. Cyrano de Bergerac?
Yeah, with
I didn't
Peter
even know
Dinklage.
they were making one. Never had any idea.
Bella, which
Don't know what that is either.
it's by the same people who did Summer Wars, and
Oh, I do know what that is.
it looked like Summer Wars again. Which,
Yeah,
from what
it
I
does.
understand, Summer Wars is just like the first Digimon movie again. The guy just makes one movie. Shit, what else? The Batman, Cyrano, Bella. Shoot, I knew all this stuff, and then you went through your movies, and I was like, I didn't see any of these. Oh, Jockey.
Don't know what that is.
It's about a horse jockey. I went to an art house theater. If you can't tell, that might have been it. Those are the only ones I remember. Who did Cyrano? There was another one that I don't remember if it was Cyrano or if it was...
The Cyrano looked good. I like Roxanne.
Cyrano
Which was like...
looked good, yes.
I think of the trailers that I saw, I don't think Batman looks I think Batman looks fine, but it doesn't look like it's not what I care for.
It looks like
So,
the same movies I already saw.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine. I'd probably see it at some point, but I don't really see myself necessarily going to a theater for it. I was pleasantly surprised with the first Sonic, and I think the Sonic sequel looks fun enough. If I had to drag my ass to a theater to see something, it would probably be Sonic 2. The only other one is, I really liked the first Poirot movie, Murder on the Orient Express, so I'm excited for Death on the Nile.
Even though it has the guy who, eats people's bodies.
Armie Hammer, I saw his name in that, and I was like, ooh, I forgot that this was in production this was been in production for a very long time.
I saw a poster for Death on the Nile, I don't know, a month or so ago, when it first came out or something, and people were like, they're still doing this, huh? Arnie Hammer, eats people, and then, somebody else was, crazy into, COVID misinformation, and then somebody else was,
really?
a January 6th insurrectionist, and...
I thought it had been abandoned just because
Arnie Hammer
Murder on
eats
the Orient
people.
Express came out a million years ago, and they announced that they were doing another one, but then it just kept getting put off. But I think I like the first one. I think those movies are fun, or at least
I like the
first
Poirot
movie was fun
character.
enough. Yeah, so I'm excited for that. But I think none of these are necessarily going to drag my ass to a theater. But maybe Sonic 2, since Sonic 1 was the last movie I saw in a theater.
For the purpose of the question, I think going through, again, I might be missing a trailer here or there, but those are the ones I remember. I think the next movie I see in theater is gonna be Jockey. It looks very run-of-the-mill by the numbers, which I know is hypocritical since I said that about The Batman. But, I don't know, it seemed it's about a jockey who's now old and he's trying to keep up with the young bucks. And his body's not going where his brain wants to be. And I don't know, I can eat that up. Cyrano looks good, but it doesn't look like a movie I watch. I'll probably let Kirsten know about it, and it seems like something up her alley, and I'll probably watch it with her. But Jockey, I think, was the most interesting out of the ones I saw. Bella, I was not that interested in. I've never heard of it until now. Apparently, people were talking about it in the theater. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you like this, tell a friend. If you didn't, then lie to a friend. Check us out on Twitter @SoHowAbout. You can find me on Twitter @SethKumpf. You can find Andrew on Twitter @TessuDownist. And subscribe to us on YouTube @SoHowAbout.
And join us next time when we do this once more with Interference.
Watcher. Boop. Boop.
So, Seth.
Well,
Mike
Andrew,
Roth.
I'm glad you asked, and I'm glad you still appreciate that joke, and I'm glad our listeners appreciated that big spike on my audio. We're going to be probably watching Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which originally premiered May 6th, 2022, written by Chris McKenna and Eric Sommer, directed by Sam Raimi.
Isn't there a show that's supposed to come out before that?
I didn't think so.
Like March or June?
Is that like a Hawk and Dove thing?
Oh, wait. I don't know why I said June like that is before May, but...
Can you tell I want to be done?
Did we figure out what we're watching next?
Oh.
Like for realsies?
So next time, I guess next time we got some time. We don't know exactly, but the people have spoken, and it'll be a DC movie. I might do another poll, which won't matter because it will already have happened.
I thought you were going to say I might do another poll because I didn't like those
I
results.
didn't like those results. No, what I think I'll probably end up doing is just doing a poll each week. And hopefully we get responses. We got 3, which is enough to make a decision. So that's good. But it will be a DC movie, and I will probably just put another poll out today about those 4. It was like Man of Steel, Catwoman, whatever the other 2 we said were. I'm just going to use the ones that I used as examples and just be like, what are we watching? From then on, we'll just put up a poll each week and just be like, what are we watching next week until we have to watch Multiverse of Madness.